first is Ocarina of Time inside Jabu Jabu's belly. This dungeon takes place in my favorite Zelda area, Zora's Domain. In fact, it is the first dungeon you get introduced to that is related to Zora's Domain, so you're still a kid at this point in the story. The purpose of entering Lord Jabu Jabu's belly is to retrieve the adorableness that is Princess Ruto of the Zoras. At times, I think I'm more motivated when it comes to saving Princess Ruto than Princess Zelda. Hashtag Zelda Confessions. So not only do you get to save the lovely Princess Ruto in this unique dungeon, but you also get to experience a flashback to that time you watched Finding Nemo in 2003. That's right, you're inside a whale's belly for this quest. So as long as rendered images of blocky, 3D internal organs don't gross you out, you should be in for a treat while exploring this whale's grotesque anatomy. Truth be told, I think I like this dungeon so much because Princess Ruto is just a little brat. I love her sass. Not to mention, you get the pleasure of carrying her, throwing her, and abandoning her throughout the entire dungeon. Now, if I'm putting a dungeon on this list, I gotta at least mention the enemies. So my favorite enemies in this dungeon are for sure the jellies. They're creepy yet comforting in the sense that they don't make unnecessarily annoying sounds when you have to approach them in the ever respawning environment that is a Zelda dungeon. Overall, this dungeon is super unique, fun, and kind of gross. So, it's awesome. Up next, I want to talk about Sand Ship in Skyward Sword. So I'll outright admit I am not really one for pirate TV shows or movies, but this dungeon really brought out the inner "Arrgh, matey" in me. Okay, wait, let me back up for a second. The entire transition you go through in finding this dungeon was so epic. I don't really like to use this word, but I definitely feel like it captures the essence of what I'm trying to say. You start out helping this little boop-beep robot dude who is deathly afraid of these pirates who stole his ship and his crew, but thanks to the time gap between now and the pirate/robot age, you get to sail through an actual sea of sand. The stolen ship is found in a similar manner to the Wind Waker's ghost ship, seeing as they are both invisible to the naked eye. But the sand ship in Skyward Sword plays a much larger role, seeing as it is an actual dungeon, like with a boss and stuff, rather than being simply a Triforce chart location. Being on the ship definitely makes you feel like a rogue pirate or something, especially the mini-boss fight that happens suddenly when you're in mid-exploration. I love it when mini-bosses show up out of nowhere, and this game definitely took the cake when it came to having an epic mini-boss jump scare. Skirvo is this rusty pirate's name, and he pops out of nowhere when you're in current time, meaning he has had the audacity to stay up and running all these years, even when all the other robots are already wasted to nothing but a bucket of bolts. I also can't help but admire the whimsical music that plays when you're battling this not-so-graceful freebooter. The main boss of the sand ship is way less epic than the mini-boss, so don't get too excited. In fact, you might know him. It's actually Mike Wazowski and Celia's love child from Monsters, Inc. Okay, I get it. I watch way too many Disney movies. Twilight Princess, Arbiter's Grounds. So while trying to pick my favorite Twilight Princess dungeon, I realized something. Twilight Princess has the best set of dungeons out of any other Zelda title. I literally had to narrow down a list of 5 other dungeons just to choose this one when it came to Twilight Princess. Pretty impressive if you ask me. But still, it's not my favorite Zelda game. You'll find out what my real favorite is if you keep watching though. So back to Arbiter's Grounds. Why did I pick it? I know it's not a favorite for a lot of people, because of the dexterity required to work the spinner. The reason I chose this dungeon was for the feel of it and the feel alone. I can't play this dungeon and not feel like a young Nicolas Cage in National Treasure exploring the depths of the Trinity Church. Cue Link Cage.
What do you see?
Nicolas Cage. National Treasure.
At one point in the dungeon, you actually have to veer left, and while following a path to what you think leads you to the next section of the dungeon, you turn a corner and find yourself surrounded with Redeads screeching at the top of their lungs like but scarier, you know. The game literally forces you to just barrel through these guys in order to proceed. And I actually appreciate that the game sets you up for a major beating here. It really adds to the hostile environment that is the Arbiter's grounds. Essentially, a ghost of a prison with the smell of imminent death and Redead poop. Majora's Mask, Moon Dungeons. Funny thing about Majora's Mask is, well, two funny things actually. One, it's my favorite Zelda game. Two, it has the worst dungeon selection. So that goes to show that having a good set of dungeons isn't everything when it comes to making a good game. My favorite, the Moon Dungeon set, is only entirely accessible if you unlock all of the masks in the game, which forces you to complete all of the side quests. It is definitely worth your time if you decide to take this route. The best part of Majora's Mask is everything but the dungeons. That's why my favorite choice of dungeon in this game is actually a set of dungeons that are only unlocked to their full potential after completing all of the major side quests that the game has to offer. These dungeons are very short and modeled after the 4 elements that make up the only other 4 dungeons of the game: Deku, Goron, Zora, and regular form. Each dungeon ends with the creepy meeting with one of the Children of the Moon. Once you've completed each dungeon and given up your respective masks, you can get the best mask in the game, the Fierce Deity Mask. It is by far the best item you can receive in any Zelda game, so the fact that the Moon Dungeons are a necessity when it comes to receiving a totally optional item makes them all the more desirable. So yeah, in summation, make that baby man-child love his grown woman chicken lady and stuff, so you can get the mask that makes you super strong and rad. Up last, I want to talk about the Wind Waker's Earth Temple. The Wind Waker has a set of surprisingly challenging dungeons for having an art style that's so easy on the eyes. Therefore, it was pretty easy choosing the dungeon that appealed to me the most, which also happens to be my least favorite dungeon on this list thus far. Allow me to explain why. The Earth Temple should be called the Mirror Temple because it's very similar to the Spirit Temple in Ocarina of Time and the Stone Tower Temple in Majora's Mask, seeing as the Mirror Shield is a key item in all 3 of those dungeons. Utilizing the Mirror Shield is very tedious in Wind Waker for one main reason. You use a Mirror Shield for 2 characters simultaneously, Medley and Link, yourself. The controls are very different when you assume your Medley form, so if you accidentally press Link's shield activation button in Medley's form, you reassume Link's form. Therefore, if you continue to make this little mistake, you have to replay the command melody each time to correct it. Talk about repetitive. Aside from that little complaint, I have to say that this dungeon has a great overall theme. I loved the rush of adrenaline I felt while running to avoid the toppling of the coffin-like stones that came rushing down as you passed them. It was also fun having Medley do her flappy flap thing. Also, I can't not bring up the deja vu I had playing this temple with Medley that brought me back to throwing Princess Ruto around Lord Jabu Jabu's belly in Ocarina of Time. Those were some good times. Hey guys, if you like my Nintendo reviews like this one, you should check out my Super Mario Sunshine video. I'll link it below.